James Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive space station through the shuttle's window. The Galactic Cultural Exchange Station looked like a giant silver snowflake floating in space, with bright lights twinkling along its edges. As one of the first human maintenance technicians to work on an alien station, his heart was beating fast with both excitement and nervousness. "Welcome to GCES-7, a robotic voice announced as the shuttle docked. Please ensure all personal belongings are properly sanitized before entering the main station." James grabbed his toolkit and duffel bag, double-checking that he had everything he needed. The company had only given him basic training about alien technology, but they assured him that human tools would work just fine. He wasn't so sure about that. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss, and James stepped into his new home for the next year. The first thing he noticed was how the corridors seemed to pulse with gentle colors. Blues, greens, and purples flowed across the walls like waves in an ocean. It was beautiful, but also a bit confusing. "Ah, you must be the new human technician." A tall, blue-skinned alien approached him. The alien's skin glowed softly, changing colors as it spoke. "I'm Station Manager Zix. Welcome aboard." James tried not to stare. He had been told about the Lumini, aliens who could change their skin's brightness and color at will. But seeing one in person was different. "Thank you, sir. I'm James Chen. Please, follow me to your quarters," Zix said, leading the way. "You'll notice our station uses color-based indicators for most systems. The shifting patterns tell us which areas are restricted, which doors are locked, and so on." As they walked, James realized he was having trouble understanding the color systems. What looked like a simple blue wall to him apparently contained important information that Zix could read easily. Sir." James raised his hand like a schoolboy. "I'm having trouble seeing the differences in some of these colors. Human eyes might not be as advanced as Lumini eyes." Zix's skin flickered with what James would later learn was surprise. "Oh my, I hadn't considered that. How fascinating. Well, we'll have to make some adjustments. For now, just remember, if you see any ultra-bright pulses, that means the area is restricted." They stopped at a door that looked exactly like all the others to James. "These are your quarters," Zix said. "The door will recognize your biosignature now. Just wave your hand in front of the sensor." James waved awkwardly at the door. Nothing happened. "A bit more to the left," Zix suggested. "No, your other left. There you go." The door finally slid open, revealing a simple but comfortable room. The walls were white, probably to help humans who couldn't read the color signals. "Get some rest," Zix said. "Tomorrow, you'll start your orientation with our engineering team. And don't worry too much about the color signals. We'll figure something out." After Zix left, James sat on his bed and looked around his new room. The space station hummed softly around him, a constant reminder that he was far from Earth. Through his small window, he could see the stars and a piece of the station's snowflake structure. "Well," he muttered to himself, "at least I can't mess up too badly on my first day. What's the worst that could happen?" He had no idea that tomorrow he would walk into a situation that would change not just his life, but the way humans and aliens understood each other forever. But for now, he was just happy to have made it through day one without causing any intergalactic incidents. James's first morning on the station started with an urgent beep from his communication device. He had just finished his breakfast of standard Earth protein bars when the emergency maintenance call came through. "Human technician needed in residential block C, room 247. Priority level high." He grabbed his toolkit and hurried through the corridors, trying his best to follow the station's confusing color-based navigation system. The walls pulsed with patterns that probably meant something important, but to his human eyes, they all looked like pretty light shows. "Excuse me," he called out to a passing Lumini. "Could you point me to Block C?" The alien's skin flickered with helpful patterns. "Follow the purple flow lines on the right wall. Can't miss it." James wanted to say that yes, He absolutely could miss it, but he just smiled and nodded. After 10 minutes of wrong turns and backtracking, he finally found Block C. Now he just had to find room 247. The door to room 247 looked like all the others. James checked his device again. The maintenance request mentioned something about a malfunctioning atmospheric regulator. He waved his hand at the sensor, and to his surprise, the door slid open immediately. That's when everything changed. Inside the room stood a Lumini woman. Her skin was glowing in spectacular patterns of blue and silver that James would later learn was their equivalent of a private moment. To him, it just looked like beautiful colors. "Oh, I'm so sorry." James spun around to face the door. "I didn't know anyone was. I got a maintenance call about this room." But instead of screaming or getting angry, he heard a sound that seemed like laughter. Wait. The Lumini woman called out. "You really can't see it, can you? My privacy aura." James kept his back turned. "Your what?" "My privacy aura, the ultraviolet pattern that tells everyone not to enter." She sounded fascinated rather than upset. "Please, turn around. I'm decent. Well, by your human standards, I'm always decent. We Lumini don't wear clothes like you do." James slowly turned. The Lumini woman had dimmed her glow to a gentle blue. She was tall and elegant, like most of her species, with features that seemed both alien and beautiful. "I'm Lyra," she said. "I'm an engineer in the quantum communications department. And you just proved something I've been trying to tell our station designers for months." James was confused. "I proved what?" "That our signage system is completely incompatible with other species." Lyra's skin sparkled with excitement. "We've been using ultraviolet privacy markers for centuries, but they're invisible to many species, including humans apparently." "Oh," James said, still feeling awkward. "I really am sorry about barging in during your, my luminescence charging cycle." Lyra finished for him. "It's like your equivalent of a shower or changing clothes. We absorb specific light frequencies to maintain our glow." She moved closer, studying him with genuine interest. "Those things you're wearing, clothes, they're your way of showing privacy." "Well, yes, among other things." "Fascinating." Lyra's skin rippled with what James guessed was enthusiasm. "Do you know what this means? We need a complete overhaul of our privacy indication systems, something that works for all species." James finally relaxed a little. "So, you're not mad about me walking in?" "Mad? This is the most exciting thing that's happened all week." Although, she added with a flicker of what might have been amusement, "Next time, maybe knock first." As James left Lyra's room a few minutes later, after promising to meet her later to discuss cross-species communication solutions, he couldn't believe his luck. What could have been the most embarrassing moment of his life had turned into something completely unexpected. Little did he know, this awkward encounter would soon become famous across the entire station and beyond. News travels fast on a space station, especially when it involves an awkward encounter between a human and a Lumini. By the time James arrived at the station's main cafeteria the next day, it seemed like everyone knew about the privacy incident. There he is, the human who can't see privacy auras. A small green alien child pointed at him as he walked in. The child's mother quickly pulled its hand down, skin glowing with what James guessed was embarrassment. James tried to find an empty table, carrying his tray of Earth-safe food. Before he could hide in a corner, he heard a familiar voice. "James, over here." Lyra waved from a large table where several other aliens sat. Her skin glowed with warm, welcoming colors. James hesitated, then walked over. "Everyone, this is James," Lyra announced to the group. "And no, he didn't barge into my room because he's rude. He literally cannot see our privacy indicators." The aliens at the table all started talking at once. A tall, crystal-like being leaned forward. "Is it true humans wrap themselves in artificial skins every day?" "You mean clothes?" James pulled at his uniform sleeve. Yes, we wear them all the time, except for bathing or sleeping. But how do you change colors to show your emotions? Asked another Lumini. We don't, James explained. Our faces and body language show emotions instead, like smiling when we're happy. He demonstrated with a grin. The aliens watched in fascination as James explained basic human expressions. Soon, they were all trying to smile with various degrees of success. The crystal being's attempt looked more like a crack in its surface, but James appreciated the effort. Look at this, Lyra said, pulling out a datapad. I've been researching other species' privacy customs. The Zalaxians use scent markers we can't smell. The crystalloids use subsonic vibrations. We're all living together but missing half of each other's important signals. James noticed how Lyra's skin glowed brighter when she got excited about her research. He found himself smiling more around her, and not just to demonstrate human expressions. That's why we need a new system, she continued. Something every species can understand. James, show them what you brought. James pulled out some simple do not disturb signs he had made. They combined Earth symbols, Lumini color patterns, and universal warning shapes. Brilliant, exclaimed a jellyfish-like alien floating above the table. Even my species can understand these, and we communicate primarily through electrical impulses. As lunch continued, more station residents came to their table. Everyone wanted to share their own culture's privacy customs. James learned that some species considered it rude to look directly at someone eating, while others thought it was weird that humans closed their eyes to sleep. You know what this means? Lyra asked, her skin pulsing with bright ideas. We need to organize a proper cultural exchange program, not just about privacy, about everything. Station manager Zix, who had been watching from nearby, floated over. That's an excellent suggestion, Lyra. Perhaps you and James would like to lead this initiative. James looked at Lyra, who was literally glowing with happiness. He found himself nodding before he even thought it through. Something about her enthusiasm was infectious. Perfect. Zix's skin flickered with approval. You can start next week. And James. Yes, sir. Try not to walk in on any more Lumini during their charging cycles. Zix's colors shifted in what James was learning to recognize as amusement. Though I must say, your first cultural exchange turned out rather well. As everyone laughed, James noticed Lyra's skin had taken on a new color he hadn't seen before, a soft, rosy glow that seemed to appear whenever she looked in his direction. He wondered what that meant, but decided some cultural discoveries could wait for another day. 3 weeks after the privacy incident, James and Lyra sat in the station's development lab, surrounded by holographic displays and prototype signs. Empty coffee cups for James and light energy capsules for Lyra littered their workspace. Try this one, James said, holding up a new design. The sign combined traditional human symbols with Lumini light patterns, plus raised bumps for touch-sensitive species and chemical markers for scent-based aliens. Lyra's skin rippled with approval. Much better. Watch this. She pressed a button, and the sign began changing. It cycled through different states. Available, do not disturb, emergency only, and maintenance required. The best part, James explained to the small crowd gathering around their lab, is that every species can understand at least 2 of the warning systems. If one fails, there's always a backup. A crystalloid engineer tapped the sign with one crystal finger. I can feel the subsonic pulses clearly. Very clever. The station's communication system suddenly crackled to life. Attention all residents. Station Manager Zix requests James, Chen, and Lyra to report to the main conference room immediately. James and Lyra looked at each other. Her skin had taken on that rosy glow again, the one that appeared more often when they worked closely together. We better go, she said, quickly gathering their latest prototypes. In the conference room, they found not only Zix, but also several important-looking aliens wearing formal identity markers. One of them, a tall Lumini with deeply patterned skin, stepped forward. I am Director Vex of the Galactic Standards Committee, he announced. "We've been watching your project with great interest." James felt nervous. The Galactic Standards Committee was responsible for approving all new technologies used across multiple species. Their decision could make or break the project. "Your universal signage system," Director Vex continued, "is precisely what we've been looking for. But we need to know, can it be scaled? Could it work on other stations? Other planets?" Lyra's skin brightened with confidence. "Actually, we've already thought about that." She pulled up a holographic display showing their designs. Each sign can be customized for local species. On a water world, we'd add bioluminescent markers. On a gas giant, we'd include pressure differentials. James jumped in, pointing to different features. "The base system stays the same, but we can add or remove elements depending on who needs to understand them. It's like a universal translator, but for safety and privacy." Director Vex's skin shifted through thoughtful patterns. "Demonstrate for us." Over the next hour, James and Lyra showed how their system worked. They had created everything from simple room signs to complex emergency warnings. Each design worked for multiple species simultaneously. "The chemical markers only last 3 months, James admitted. "But we're working on a longer-lasting version. And the light patterns need recharging every week," Lyra added. "But that's actually an advantage. It means we can update them easily if needed." After the demonstration, Director Vex huddled with his colleagues, the room filled with a mix of light patterns, crystalline chimes, and subsonic rumbles as they discussed. Finally, Director Vex turned back to them. His skin glowed with formal authority. "The committee has decided. We want to implement your system across all major Galactic Union facilities." James and Lyra stared at each other in shock. Station-wide implementation was one thing, but across the entire Galactic Union. "Of course," Vex continued, his skin showing amusement. "This means you'll need to work together much more closely. Is that acceptable?" "Yes," they answered simultaneously, James with his voice, Lyra with a bright pulse of light. As they left the conference room later, both buzzing with excitement, James noticed Lyra's rosy glow was brighter than ever. This time, he was pretty sure he knew what it meant. His own cheeks felt rather rosy too. Just when James and Lyra thought everything was going perfectly, a new message arrived from the Galactic Standards Committee. Director Vex's hologram appeared in their lab, his skin patterns showing concern. "We have a situation," he announced. "Station K789 has proposed their own universal communication system. The committee has decided to hold a competition. The better system will become the galactic standard." James felt his stomach sink. "How long do we have?" 1 week. The competition will be held on Central Station. All major species will be there to judge." The hologram flickered out, leaving James and Lyra staring at each other. 1 week. Lyra's skin had turned a pale, worried blue. "Our chemical markers aren't even perfected yet." James reached out and almost touched her shoulder, then remembered Lumini preferred light-based comfort signals. He pulled out a small light device they'd been working on and created a gentle, calming pattern. Lyra's skin brightened a bit. "Thanks, James. You're getting good at Lumini comfort signals." "Well, I had a good teacher." He smiled. "And that's it. That's our advantage." "What do you mean?" "We're living proof that different species can learn each other's ways." James started pacing excitedly. "Station K789 probably has a team of scientists working separately. But us, we learned from each other. We understand both human and Lumini perspectives." They spent the next few days improving their system. James taught Lyra more about human body language, while she helped him understand the subtle meanings in different light patterns. They barely slept, surviving on coffee and light energy capsules. Finally, competition day arrived. Central Station was huge, at least 5 times bigger than their home station. The presentation hall was packed with representatives from every known intelligent species. Station K789's team went first. Their system was impressive. a purely technological solution using advanced holograms and force fields. The audience seemed impressed, especially when they demonstrated its emergency features. Top that, human, sneered the K-789 team leader, a tall crystalloid, as they passed James and Lyra. When it was their turn, James felt nervous, but Lyra's encouraging glow gave him confidence. They walked to the center of the stage together. Our system isn't just about technology, James began. It's about understanding each other. Lyra continued, her skin displaying carefully chosen patterns. We didn't just create signs. We created a way for different species to learn from each other. They demonstrated their system, but with a twist. Instead of just showing how it worked, they showed how it could adapt. James explained human privacy needs while displaying Lumini-style light patterns. Lyra demonstrated crystalloid warning signs while using human hand gestures. The real power isn't in the signs, James explained. It's in how they help us understand each other's cultures. To prove their point, they invited audience members to try the system. A jellyfish-like alien successfully communicated with a rock-based life form. A gas cloud being understood a water breather's warnings. The judges huddled together, discussing in various forms of communication. The wait felt like forever. Finally, Director Vex floated to the stage. His skin showed formal announcement patterns. Both systems have merit, he began. K-789's technology is advanced. But his skin shifted to approval patterns. The system created by James and Lyra shows us something more important. It shows us how to grow together as a galactic community. The audience erupted in various forms of approval: lights, sounds, vibrations, and even some human-style clapping that James had taught some aliens. As they walked off stage, Lyra's skin glowed with that special rosy color again. This time, James was sure it matched the blush on his cheeks perfectly. Their hands brushed briefly, sending tiny sparks of static electricity between them, a proper Lumini sign of affection. They had won more than just a competition. They had proved that the best innovation comes from understanding each other. Back on their home station after winning the competition, James and Lyra found themselves busier than ever. The Galactic Standards Committee had given them a new challenge: teach their system to representatives from 50 different species. "I never thought our little accident would lead to this," James said one evening, as they sat in the station's observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and Lyra's gentle glow reflected off the reinforced windows. "You mean when you walked in on my charging cycle?" Lyra's skin flickered with amusement. "That feels like forever ago." "Best mistake I ever made," James admitted, making Lyra's skin pulse with that now familiar rosy color. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent message. Director Vex needed them in the main hall immediately. When they arrived, they found the hall packed with aliens from across the galaxy. "There you are." Director Vex's skin showed excitement patterns. "We have a surprise presentation for you both." One by one, different species came forward to demonstrate how they'd adapted James and Lyra's system. A group of gas cloud beings showed how they'd modified it for their floating cities. Water-breathing aliens presented their underwater version. Even the rock-based crystalloids had carved permanent warning systems into their cave cities. "But that's not all," Director Vex announced. "Show them the data." A holographic display appeared, showing statistics from stations that had adopted their system. Accidents caused by cultural misunderstandings had dropped by 85%. Interspecies friendships had increased by 200%. Even business deals between different species were up by 150%. "Your system isn't just about privacy and warnings anymore," a senior committee member explained. "It's teaching species how to understand each other better." James felt overwhelmed. "But we just wanted to stop people from walking in on each other." The crowd laughed in various ways, some with light, some with sound, some with vibrations. Even the most serious committee members showed amusement. Lyra's skin glowed with pride. "Don't you see, James? That's exactly why it worked. We didn't try to solve everything. We just fixed one small problem in a way that helped everyone understand each other better. Which brings us to our next announcement. Director Vex said, "We want to create a new department, the Bureau of Interspecies Cultural Understanding, and we want you two to lead it." James and Lyra looked at each other in shock. Her skin was showing patterns he'd never seen before. Excitement mixed with happiness and something else. But James hesitated. "I'm just a maintenance technician." And Lyra is just an engineer. Director Vex finished. "Exactly. You're not politicians or professors. You're regular people who learn to understand each other. That's what we need." Plus, added another committee member, "You two are the first human Lumini couple in recorded history. You're already making history." James felt his face turn red. He and Lyra hadn't officially announced their relationship yet, though most station residents had probably guessed. Lyra's skin was now glowing with the brightest rosy color he'd ever seen. She turned to him, creating a pattern that he recognized as a question mark. "What do you think, James? Ready for another adventure?" Looking at Lyra, James remembered that first awkward day when he'd walked into her room. How embarrassed he'd been, how surprised she'd been, and how that one mistake had changed everything. "You know what?" he said, smiling at her. "I think walking into the wrong room was the right choice after all." Lyra's skin sparkled with joy, creating patterns that made several nearby Lumini gasp and then applaud. James didn't know exactly what the patterns meant, but he had a pretty good idea. Sometimes the best revelations come from the most unexpected places, like accidentally walking in on an alien girl changing. 1 year after the famous privacy incident, the Galactic Cultural Exchange Station looked very different. James and Lyra's universal communication system had transformed not just the station, but the entire galactic community. James stood in front of their old maintenance room, now converted into a museum display called "Where It All Began." Inside, visitors could see recreations of that fateful day, including a hologram of James walking into Lyra's room during her charging cycle. Still embarrassed, Lyra appeared beside him, her skin glowing with playful patterns. She was wearing a human-style jacket over her luminescent body, a fashion trend she had started that was now popular among Lumini across the galaxy. "A little," James admitted, adjusting his own uniform, which now included Lumini light patterns. But it was worth it. They walked together through the station's corridors, passing aliens of all species. Everywhere, their communication system was in use, but in ways they had never expected. A group of crystalloid children played with human kids, using light-patterned toys to communicate. In the cafeteria, a Lumini chef wore an Earth-style apron while serving food to various species. Even the station's pets, from Earth dogs to Lumini light creatures, wore universal translator collars based on their design. Ambassador James, Ambassador Lyra. A young Lumini student rushed up to them, her skin showing excitement patterns. "Will you tell us the story again? About how you met?" They had told this story hundreds of times, but it never got old. As they sat down with a growing crowd of various species, James and Lyra shared a knowing look. "Well," James began, "it all started when a human maintenance technician couldn't read alien privacy signs. And when a Lumini engineer discovered that sometimes the best discoveries come from mistakes," Lyra added, her skin creating illustrated patterns to help tell the story. As they finished telling their tale, Director Vex approached with an important announcement. "The final statistics are in," he said, his skin showing formal patterns. 1,000 stations have now adopted your system. Interspecies marriages are up 300%. Cultural misunderstandings are down 90%. And he added with an amused glow, "Incidents of walking in on charging Lumini have dropped to 0. Everyone laughed. Some with sound, some with light, some with vibrations. That was normal now. "There's one more thing," Lyra said, her skin suddenly showing nervous patterns. She turned to James. "Remember how you said humans have special ways of asking important questions?" James nodded, wondering what she meant. Lyra's skin shifted to create a pattern he had never seen before. It spelled out human letters in light. Whale you many. The crowd gasped in various species ways. James stood shocked for a moment, then broke into a huge smile. Yes, he said, while also attempting to create the Lumini light pattern for eternal bond, something he'd been practicing in secret. His pattern was a bit wobbly, making Lyra laugh, but she glowed with pure joy. Their audience erupted in multi-species celebration. This, Director Vex announced to everyone, is what we mean by the new standard. Not just in communication systems, but in understanding, in acceptance, in love. Later that evening, James and Lyra stood at their favorite spot on the observation deck. Earth was visible as a tiny blue dot in the distance, while the lights of thousands of space stations sparkled like stars. You know, James said, holding Lyra's glowing hand, when I first came to this station, I thought I was just going to fix broken machines. And I thought I was just going to be an engineer, Lyra replied, her skin creating soft, loving patterns. Instead, we fixed the way species understand each other. As they watched the stars together, their story was being told across the galaxy, about how one embarrassing mistake had changed everything, about how understanding comes from the heart, no matter what species you are, and about how love can bridge any distance, even the space between stars.